Thursday, August 6th, 9:39 a.m. What's up, everybody? We are back on the market. As we can see, we are following CF. So, in the last video clip, I said we had closed the position, which we had, and so two further decisions were made to short it yesterday at the open, because from the filming of the last video clip of our little entry into the open of yesterday, I believe, yes, Trump had come out and basically said, there was more conversation about furthering to getting to this deal or another resolution headline. And so, not super, like we said in the clip, not super solid. Again, it doesn't seem like this is a very good diplomatic exchange, but there was just further conversation of, hey, Trump asserting that maybe there's going to be another headline closer to a resolution, another memorandum of understanding, something to that effect. And so, two decisions: to hold a position short throughout the day, and then to hold overnight or into the earnings report. And so we shorted yesterday at 118.31, held throughout the day, and then we had 30 shares, and then just decided, hey, I did want some exposure. Like we did not hold through the last earnings report, and we were kind of underwhelmed, and it kind of had some depreciation. But for this one overall, and I'm hoping to stay in it, we have a hard stop loss currently at 114. Been a super widespread and super jerky, so if we get snapped out of this, I wouldn't be surprised, but we are into true profit. Well, this is, again, each time we close a position and open one, it's a new trade, and so this is just a 138 profit off these 20 shares from yesterday. But hoping to stay in it, because if we get this leg down and then we get another leg down, that's when we would look to add or to have like one of these days where we're back weighted by a good amount of money, $100, but like we can make a trade where we can add to our size and maybe go to 100 shares for an intraday trade, but we just have some sort of back weighting should the price continue to stay below our entry. But regardless, what kind of made me want to hold into earnings or to reinitiate a position into earnings was the overall dividend. And so the previous dividend issuances had been 50 cents, and that had been pretty consistent. And then this one coming up is 60 cents. And so typically, again, just my intuition with not really, again, a bunch of data points, hey, here's a company raising a dividend. But if you just have some sort of short-term profit, you don't expect it to reflect in the share price in a meaningful way, that's when you would increase the dividend to me. And so to me, that means, hey, the management of CF Holdings is like, you know what, this increase, yeah, I don't even know, like I'm saying exactly what I know. Like I don't know if they've actually had increased demand, revenue, sales because of this conflict with Iran. But assuming they have, and it's just they see it as a short-term thing, right, they would pass it on as a dividend, not hey, we're going to grow in our fertilizer business. Again, I don't know if fertilizer is a growth business or not. I'm not trying to make some sort of I don't know, is pejorative the right word here, but just some sort of random statement. I have no idea if that's the right word. But I could make this sentiment of, hey, fertilizer is obviously not a growth industry. I don't know, right? I don't know what the revenue structure is, how the business works. And so pointing out what I don't know, but when I see a dividend raise from a short-term stimulus, I'm thinking, hey, we're not, as the management of CF, we're not seeing this as growth indication for our stock. This is just something we can pass on as a dividend. So that was kind of the quote-unquote fundamental, or more of the thesis of why I want to enter the trade, and then I want to trade a stock. So I was like, this is where I have some conviction. Again, just some sort of further resolution headline. What do I see with some sort of good cause and effect relationship? And so that is why we held into, like I said, two separate decisions. One, to hold short throughout the day, because once Trump says, overnight, 36 hours ago, hey, we're going to try to get this done within the next 24 to 48 hours, it's like you have direct statement of a time frame. So it's I wanted to hold open short then, and then with this dividend raise, hold into the actual earnings report. So this one did go in our favor. Again, not a huge position, but a nice little trade. And so hard stop loss. Again, if we can get through, there's been a huge spread today. Earnings report on a stock that's already typically trading, certainly in the opening hour, with a pretty wide spread, and so it's like I wouldn't be surprised if we get snapped out of this. But if it stays below and we stay in, this will definitely be something we try to, again, hold for a little longer. We don't actually have the actual ex-dividend date till the 14th, I believe. Yes, the 14th. And so if we get any good just intraday trade before then, we don't even have to worry about the dividend, and that's what we'll almost certainly try to do. And so this is a fun little trade again, hopefully not going, again, we have a secured profit at least intraday today, and then we would reassess at the end of the day if we want to hold anything open into tomorrow. But this will be looking pretty strong if we get through the opening hour, again, 9:45 right now. Because now, again, if we get any further, this is off the earnings report, this price action. And so if we get any further resolution, I would expect another leg down. And so that would give us some good wiggle room for just an intraday trade just to try to make some money. But regardless, that is just what went on. Those were the decisions. That was a good little log. Like, first time we've taken a position, it's not like immediately, okay, we're in, price average and wait like 2 or 3 weeks. But that was our talking point for this morning. As again, in addition to, obviously, I don't have constitutional rights. I don't watch CNBC all day. Just cooking breakfast, turn on the show, or CNBC, I want to say it was like 8:45, so I think it was still Squawk on the Street or Squawk Box, one segment of squawking. And some good-looking, again, brunette-haired chick is up there, regular person kind of on there, I forget her name. And she literally goes, "We're not in any cycle, or just in any cycle, we're in a super cycle." So now again, then I'm sitting there and my mom's around, and her ears perk up because every time, because I say Big Sandy Superstore every time the commercial comes on. And so now in all of the property you guys are directly stealing, I say an agentic super cycle. So it's a very simple thing, but again, very specific. Hey, we have Big Sandy Superstore, jingle, logo, cadence, paired to our agentic super cycle. Then I just randomly turn on CNBC to the point where that chick is just randomly saying it, and it's not random. This is the dissemination of logic. You can't avoid this form of, hey, this is how people actually speak. And then my mom's ears perk up, and she's like, "Hey, you say that." And it's like, I don't kind of say that. That's directly stolen from my property. And so now we're sitting here with Leopold Oschenberger, and he's a math wizard, quiz wizard. And it's like, look, Mom, that's what a guy does when he gets labeled a math genius and he doesn't even do math at a school that has never done math, in an Ivy League, in an overall academic environment that doesn't know what a logarithm is. Base and an exponent. We've proven that. But completely linguistically. But you can see the damages immediately. Right, so I'm not a Leopold Aschenberger. I can't raise any money illegally. I can't be a hedge fund manager, and I can literally feel the markets. That's a pretty good edge. Right? But we see that damage, and then we see him doing his actual money management, this Aschenberger, Leopold. What kind of name is that? And so that's one damages. And then the next day comes up, and they're just, again, directly talking about, in the form of this logic, the agentic super cycle. To the point where it's like, Mom, this is like, don't you see all the damages? And of course, now you guys have already destroyed my life and relationship with my parents. So that's always fun. Again, I sit here still like, hey, I am definitely having my property restricted, and I definitely want to leave. How is that not kidnapping? Oh, it is. And then I can't speak freely, because if you speak freely, it just feels like, again, if you speak against the sentiment, do we have free speech? Psych, not. Obviously not. But it's real. And it's just like, my entire life is just like people just direct projection. They say one thing, they absolutely mean the other. And it's just like, when they're talking about themselves or about the world they want to exist, and it's just like, it doesn't, brother. There is no values. No one cares about anything. This is a big competition. We live in this like super privileged society where everyone wants to be competitive and everyone's just pathetic as shit. And then it's just like, there are no laws. And then you get this like casual fraud is like all business progression. Where's the real fundamental value? Oh, our agentic super cycle? Again, everyone's just stealing Brad's discovery. It's just a fact. Uh-oh, we're getting some spikes over here. But hard stop at 114. If it hits that, we'll just be out. Again, nice little profit. Again, at 114, it'll just be like 80, $100. But so that will kind of scrap our intraday plans. But I kind of expect it to fill the gap. And then if there is further agitation with the war, which I said, like, the reason for opening yesterday was because Trump had made a further statement. But the overall response from Iran on the initial, again, like 72 hours ago, like the 4 days ago, as opposed to the 36 hours ago, Iran basically Trump had said something like, we're getting closer to a deal. And they're like, absolutely not. And like Iran had been talking with like Oman for a little bit or something. There was some progress with like the Houthis or Hamas, with Israel relations, but it was just like, it didn't seem like a very convincing diplomatic environment to be like, yeah, we're actually going to quote unquote open the strait again, whatever that means. In the same conversations we've been having. And so further agitation, I would expect this to go back up, and we'll probably get stopped out here pretty shortly. And so again, right around, again, it'll be maybe $80, but still a good little trade. Again, we were kind of right. Again, I couldn't prove the cause and effect, but we had a depreciation in the stock price, and we made a decision yesterday. And for the first time, a trade didn't go immediately against us, where we just had to sit there and do nothing. So hopefully we stay in here, but if not, just keeping the stop loss where it's at. And so, yep, that's what I have for this morning, but really wanted to cover, again, just randomly turn on, or not randomly, but turn on CNBC, 8:45, sitting there. Oh yeah, it's we're in an agentic super cycle, and it's like, who else is directly mixing Big Sandy Superstore with our agentic super cycle besides me? Yeah, and it's not funny. It's just, you guys just destroy my life. And now today at 11, I have to go try to sell a couch. And any expectation I have to have just to interact with other people, I don't want to. I just want to be able to eat properly, sleep properly, and work. That is not a joke. That is not an exaggeration. I do not have it. I have never had it. I haven't eaten properly in the past 14 years. I haven't slept properly at any point in my life. No one cares. Again, like I said, in this great... went to a Catholic school, all these people that help their neighbors and help those in need, and it's like, that's directly, literally me. And it's directly your legal obligation. 0% chance. Don't follow false authority. It's like, don't you guys see that sentiment, when it's perverse, when it's following the wrong thing? It's kind of like, that's what the first record, historically, of the law is, don't follow false authority. And very literally, the structured language is like, no, and then I don't know the actual Hebrew word. but it's literally just like, it's a command, and it's like, don't do that, no, that, no, not, no, don't, no, don't, no. It just kind of alternates. But again, just back to little money management. So like I said, I'm keeping the hard stop loss there. We got a little break there, but obviously it's just, there's no insight. But if it hits your stop loss and then it immediately goes down, you feel a little stupid. But again, I just make, kind of hard level decisions and just kind of keep them there. It's definitely securing a profit. Won't be moving the stop loss. It'd be nice if we stay in, but we'll just let it be. And so that is all I have for now. Anything else? Nothing else really caught the headlines or caught anything I wanted to talk about. So finishing up at 9:53 a.m., my rights continue to be violated. I continue to ask for a little bit of money to eat properly, to sleep properly, and to work. And again, restricting my property and holding me against my will in a given location is kidnapping. But again, nobody cares, and I keep prioritizing doing work, so I just like, haha, everything's a big joke, and it's just like, blink twice if you need out. Oh, that was 3 times. I keep blinking, but yes, I'm blinking twice. Haha, and it's a big joke. And then it's just, there's nobody that can take anything seriously. So, again, I'll never have constitutional rights, I'll never have a family as long as this crime continues. And I have no expectation it'll ever change. That's what I have for now. See you on the next video. Thursday, August 6th, 10:23 a.m. Quick update. I did want to put on the record on our little log. We raised the stop loss, which again is in the profit, but just figured, hey, we had a break in our direction. We're certainly going to get some volatility. We would have been stopped out, so our stop loss is currently at 117. Just keeping it profitable, but just on the psychology, kind of like the thought, like why the levels and why the change. Certainly, again, the morning hour, it's like, hey, that's definitely going to be our biggest relief. And again, biggest volume just in general, but biggest relief from any one move. And so we're expecting kind of, again, not really sure. Wasn't sure if I was going to expect this to open and just kind of sell off, but wanting to put the stop loss at a meaningful level technically, to again just, I want to stay in the trade, but it's still a profitability. And kind of the thought is, okay, what total dollar figure is like not a meaningful profit, but just not trivial, right? If I make $2, it's a wash. $5 like a wash. So kind of like our position size, $2 to $4. So like $40 to $80 was like, we had it at right around $80. But kind of the thought just being, it's like, hey, is this a meaningful level for the morning trade hour with a big move breaking open or opening with a gap down after this earnings report, kind of expecting some sort of relief on any company that's not just has some sort of like catastrophic headline. You're always going to have some sort of trading dynamic, but just wanting to have, sawing the 114 is just a little too tight. So we did stay in the trade. I had moved that pretty much right when I stopped recording, but it's always intuitive. And again, just documenting that it wasn't really a meaningful, the 114 level was just, hey, this is a total dollar figure. That's just like, it makes the trade a something, where the overall technical level is more meaningful, where it's like, hey, this could easily hit 114 without blinking an eye. And as we are articulating, if this hits 114, we'll feel kind of silly. So just kind of moving the stop loss up, because overall it's not a big position. It's not like we need to lock in this $80 and it's going to do anything different. And so wanting to make this a more meaningful technical level. And so I put it above the close of yesterday. And so technically, again, the gap fill, when you gap down, I'm not always convinced that you have to gap fill up, but again, gap filling seems to be a pretty consistent thing. It's just like what, when, where. Not so sure, not so convinced. Point being is, it felt like this was a more reasonable level for an overall movement in our favor, trying to stay in the trade a little bit, still at profitability, $30 profit, but that felt like a more reasonable level. So that is where we're at for here on CF, and we'll check in later. August 6th, 2:29 p.m. So just another quick update on CF and our management. So we put the stop loss, I think I had it completely at 1755, but just giving it some technical room for filling the gap, which apparently we've done. We've given back most of the gains throughout the day. Originally we had it at 14, changed it to make technical sense. Frankly, at 1755, luck, I don't want to say luck, but why did we not get stopped out with a spread of what it's been on this stock between 17, because it topped out at 1721 and 1755, wouldn't have made much of a difference whatsoever. So kind of got lucky if we continue to go down, but we've given back most of the gains throughout the day, but we've gone through the lunch hour as well. So I kind of expected to kind of flatten out from here, or maybe go down a little further, but it has filled the gap. And so if we have a lot of selling pressure going into the close, we will probably hold, but just kind of quick documentation of why we moved the stop loss up a little bit. It was just to make some sense. Technically, we filled the gap a little bit. So if we have selling pressure going into the end of the day, we will probably hold. If not, we will close out and secure our $50 to $60. But kind of just lucked out with the spread differential, and that is our plan going into the close. So we will check in later. Thursday, August 6th, 8:29 p.m. What's up, everybody? Just some finalizing thoughts. So we did end up closing out CF, probably with about 10 minutes left in the trading session today. Again, we talked through the levels. The only thing I didn't cover, again, is just kind of immediately when the news broke yesterday, or when the earnings came out, again, we had this sharp decline. So the overall levels, if we would have opened up into this 110 to 105 level, we probably would have closed into this if there was any selling pressure into the morning. It was just kind of an overall not great exits. So point being is we weren't going to close it, because typically if a stock, we have market closes at 4 o'clock, reports some sort of numbers between 4 p.m. and 4:10 p.m. Whatever the move happens, that immediately happens, again, within the first 3 minutes, and then even into the close of that given day is not indicative of where it opens up the next day. And so the expectation was to sell off, and then frankly I thought it'd be at the same level, like this 106 to 110 level or lower, opening up this morning. And then when we opened up, it was like 111 to 112. You can see right here into this candle. And so the levels were just a little off, so we didn't close out a good profit, but we did close out $30 of profit. And it just, again, we covered the other levels. Once we opened up at 11, it's like, okay, we had a hard stop loss at $14, and that's kind of just an arbitrary level for an overall dollar figure on the trade. That would have been, make it a something. But that 14 level didn't really make sense, because once it opened up, whether it sold off for the first 45 minutes from that 9:30 to 10:15, 10:17 time frame, or if it just immediately opened up expecting some sort of relief. And then once it opened up again above that 11:50, and then just kind of relief. I don't want to call it relief, but just no selling pressure once the market opened. We just kind of worked our way back up to fill the gap. And so that's why we moved our stop loss up to, again, like that 17.55. Over here we got just arbitrarily lucky or not lucky, whatever way you want to look at it, but we didn't get stopped out. And then just thinking, okay, so now if we look at this daily, again, because we gapped down to this 15.14 level, and so I wanted to have the stop loss probably $1.50 to $2 above where it gapped down from, to give it room to fill the gap and then have some sort of trading level, right? If it fluctuates, a stock with a 30 to 50% spread, if it fluctuates $1, it's like effectively nothing. And so we had the stop loss at like 17.55, then we took it away at the end, or after like 1:30, after like the lunch type of time frame. Saw a little bit of sell-off into here, but then we just kind of held, and we picked back up going into the end of the day. And so that's when I closed, with about 10 minutes left. If we would have closed with selling pressure, as we said, we probably would have held. We expect further stimulus with any sort of headlines towards a resolution. Today's price action, cause and effect, pretty clearly. Again, I say that because it's not always clear, even if it seems very clear. But the earnings report. And so if we would have stayed lower at a lower price level, or closed with selling pressure, we had further stimulus, there would have been kind of reason to hold this. If I want to re-enter, I feel like tomorrow we'll get the same spread differential at the open will allow us to have the same type of price entry if I want it. Again, not a super high conviction. Again, with this earnings, the earnings was down, which was in our favor, being short. But any further agitation of the war with this kind of gap fill, it's like I expect it to go back up. And so if it would have stayed down, much higher conviction with it floating back up, really just seeing any sort of price action as a reaction to the Iran U.S. relations. And so back to, again, just would have been nice to secure the $200. We secured $30, and just talking through the overall price levels, I don't think it was a bad trade. We might have been like, we didn't secure the money, but I think the overall price levels and management was pretty good. But regardless, kind of a trivial plus $30, count that as a trivial win. We had our dividend deposit with, we're expecting some rate hikes this year. A little income going up, maybe. Again, still don't have constitutional rights, so it doesn't really mean anything. But we had a dividend deposit today of about $1,900, I think $1,870. And so took about $800 out. Again, I don't have constitutional rights. Trying to live a life is impossible. But just talking you through overall money management, finances, anything we're doing with our trading account. And so back in the market for a trade. We'll be up here tomorrow, just kind of looking, seeing what develops. Still kind of looking at CF. We still have that dividend on like the 14th, but the earnings day has passed, and we just talked through the price action today, and so we will just see what the market brings tomorrow. So thank you for watching, and I'll check in later.